I don't have energy for my partner. I can't stop, but I'm on empty. I miss my old body. I am exhausted. I dread making dinner. I'm pregnant and tired and feel unappreciated. I miss my old life. Get ready for it. The most iconic princess story ever is literally begging to teach us how to rewrite this story. Cinderella does not fall into darkness all at once. She is lowered. Day by day, her identity is reduced to what she can provide. And even in the ashes, something survives. Welcome to Down the Well with Elle, me, your host. I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so appreciative to you for all of your kind messages to our last episode about restoring your motherhood. We're going to continue on in that series today. Today's episode is the second installment of our transformational restoring series. Say that 10 times fast. Each episode in this series will explore one of the most desired transformations that moms want, according to the internet, what listeners have shared with me, my own experience being a mom, and my experience coaching hundreds of moms over the years. So we're going to explore the old story and write a new one that is powerful enough for you to find transformation in your motherhood. The story that we're going to rewrite today is quite possibly the most painful motherhood story and the most common. That's quite the doozy, right? I was rereading some old notes from my time as CEO at Solly Baby. I used to ask the community there all the time, what was going on with them? Where were you in these? I wanted to know where these moms in this postpartum period or pregnancy period, where were they emotionally? What were they feeling? What were they struggling with? So that we could create content to really support them and products to really support them. So in reviewing these old notes, I found hundreds of messages that I had compiled into Excel spreadsheets, nerd alert. And the messages sounded like this. Let me read you some of them. I feel alone. It's too hard to leave the house with my little ones. I can't give if my cup is empty, and I often feel guilty doing things that aren't for others. I don't have energy for my partner. I can't stop, but I'm on empty. I miss my old body. I am exhausted. I dread making dinner. Parenting is lonely. The monotony of the days get to me. My tank is running on fumes, and I don't see an end in sight. I'm bored. What do I do with a 7-month-old? I can't manage my time between a newborn and a 2-year-old. This is all hard and new. I'm pregnant and tired and feel unappreciated. I miss my old life. All of these messages are some version of the story. I am disappearing in my motherhood. Maybe not all at once or dramatically, but slowly through routines, responsibilities, midnight wakings, through being needed before you're even fully awake. You've become the caretaker, the scheduler, the emotional regulator, and one day you realize you have been meeting everyone else's needs without checking whether you still even exist in the equation. You might remember who you were before motherhood: creative, ambitious, curious, alive, fun, but she feels far away now and almost selfish to retrieve. And layered underneath the longing is guilt. Shouldn't motherhood be enough? Why do I want more? This is usually where we try to fix ourselves, to optimize, to get back. But what if this isn't a problem to solve, but a descent that you're already in and just need to embrace? Moms in every season experience this feeling of disappearance, of self-loss, but it is often swiftly and acutely felt with the arrival of a new baby, where literally every bit of you is required to keep that baby and other little ones, if it's not your first, alive. And everything about your old self seems to be cut off and detached from you. But it can feel like a gradual loss over time, like a slow fading. This reminds me of when I was in the thick of it in my late 20s in motherhood. My mother-in-law kindly asked me what my favorite dinner was so she could make it for Sunday dinner that week, really sweet tradition that she had. I almost instantly responded roast or potato soup or homemade pizza. And then I was like, those aren't my favorite meals. Those are my kids' favorite meals. And then I was like, what is my favorite meal? What is my favorite meal? How do I not know what I like to eat? The fact that I didn't know something so basic about myself really caused me to pause, I'll say. But regardless of what phase of motherhood you're in, this feeling of disappearance, of losing yourself in motherhood can become more than just like annoying little thoughts. They become the stories that shape our identities, and they become self-fulfilling prophecies. But the best news is that it's just a story, and it's only the first half of the story. This is what gets me so riled up, the descent down the well. But the world tells the first half of the story like it's the full story, one of loss and self-abandonment and even martyrdom. No wonder nobody wants kids and so many moms are miserable. And then that's it, the end. Hopefully you had a few good days in there and you're able to retain enough of your body and mind to really now do something meaningful after the kids leave the house. But this loss of identity or ego death is just the beginning of a magnificent transformation story. That's what I'm selling you today, okay? It is a call to adventure if you take it on like one. And don't stay wandering around in the unknown at the bottom of the well in the dark for the rest of your life. The second half of the story is re-emergence. It's where the transformation takes place, the reclaiming of your identity. I am deeply passionate about this restoring of this story, of this narrative, because I have lived it and wandered around the bottom of the well in the dark for far too long at different points. And I've also seen the pain that the story of losing yourself and disappearance and motherhood can cause in so many other women. When left to the world to write this story unconsciously for us, we will most certainly feel depressed, anxious, and alone. Or we will buckle under the pressure, running back to our former maiden selves to escape the depression, anxiety, and loneliness. But most certainly, we're going to meet those same feelings again, but amplified because of the destruction that we've left in our wake when we abandon our responsibilities. And I've also lived the second half of the story, okay? I am convinced that if we could see the treasures of this kind of transformation story more clearly, we would all be standing in line to find out how to lose more of ourselves. More, please. Bring on the sacrifice. Bring on the ego death. We would trust that the reclaimed identity is coming, and it's more expansive and wider and truer than what we were before. And it integrates the mother and the woman. And it's so exciting, you guys. In preparation for this episode, I started studying different stories of self-loss to reclaimed identity. That is the story, from self-loss to reclaimed identity. I studied it in myth and literature, and I could not believe what I found. Get ready for it. The most iconic princess story ever is literally begging to teach us how to rewrite this story. It's one that you already know. It's a fairy tale you already know. Cinderella. Okay, so indulge me with a little story time. If you're new to Down the Well, sorry, not sorry. In my future life, I will be a librarian that runs story time, okay? Okay, so before I get into this story of Cinderella, I want to be very clear about how we're reading it. This is not a story about evil families. The stepmother, stepsisters, they're not your family. It's not about villains. It's about what happens to a woman's identity when care and survival take over, okay? In fairy tales, the stepmother isn't usually a real person. She's just a symbol. In this story, she represents an external system that is asking something of us. So don't go thinking this is about our evil families demanding servitude, okay? So once there was a woman who had a name. We don't actually know what Cinderella's name was pre-Cinderella. But she was known and she was loved and she belonged to herself and to the world. And then her whole life changed, not because she failed, not because she chose wrong, but because devotion was required of her. And slowly and almost imperceptibly, she disappeared into service. Cinderella does not fall into darkness all at once. She is lowered. Day by day, her identity is reduced to what she can provide. She becomes the one who wakes early, the one who cleans what everybody else makes dirty, the one who keeps the household running while remaining unseen within it. No one asks who she is anymore, only what she can do. So her world shrinks to the hearth. The fire must be kept burning. Cinderella, right? The mess must be managed. The needs must be met. And when everything essential is done, she sits among the ashes. Ashes are what remain after something meaningful has been consumed. This is not punishment. This is mourning. Cinderella is grieving the self that she had to lay down in order to keep life going. She is not weak here. She is enduring. This is the part of the story we rarely honor. The long middle where nothing looks heroic, but everything costs. And even in the ashes, something survives. Cinderella does not become cruel. She does not become empty. She does not forget herself completely. She approaches this phase with open-heartedness, humility, curiosity, and courage. She's not naive. She's rooted. Her capacity for relationship remains, and her inner dignity remains, even without witnesses. This is what happens to many mothers. The self doesn't vanish. It just goes underground. The underground is where the roots grow. So then an invitation comes, a call back into life, to the ball, right? Not an escape, but a remembering. Cinderella wants to go to the ball, not to be chosen, but to just participate in the world again, to remember what it feels like to be seen. But then these old voices rise up. You don't belong there anymore. That life isn't for you. Your place is here in service, in silence. This is the moment every mother recognizes. The instant desire returns and the guilt rushes in behind it. But help does come, but not as a rescue. The fairy godmother is not there to save Cinderella's life. She is there to remind Cinderella of who she is. She represents the internalized voice that says, you are allowed to be seen. You have not forfeited your worth. So the transformation is temporary, right? That night, because this is not escape. This is a rehearsal. It's the psyche testing what happens if I let myself exist again. At the ball, Cinderella is radiant. But notice this, she does not disappear into the fantasy. She doesn't abandon responsibility. She doesn't lose herself in being admired. And then she leaves. This isn't fear. This is self-possession. She knows who she is now, and she knows she must return, but not disappear again. Then we have the glass slipper. The glass slipper is transparent. It cannot be faked. It cannot be forced if it's only one person. This is not about being chosen by another. This is about identity that cannot be denied forever. Cinderella doesn't argue. She doesn't perform. She simply allows the truth to reveal itself. I love that kind of poise that she has. Cinderella does not return to who she was before. She returns as someone forged. Don't you love that word? She carries the dignity that survived invisibility, the authority born of endurance, this self that learned how to remain alive even in the ashes. She doesn't reject devotion. She doesn't abandon responsibility. She just inhabits them differently now. She has reclaimed herself, not by escaping the hearth, but by refusing to disappear within it. Motherhood often asks a woman to lay herself down before she even knows how or when she will rise again. That is a scary, vulnerable thing that we do. But Cinderella tells the truth that we rarely speak. There are seasons where a woman must live in the ashes without losing the knowledge of who she is. And when she returns, she does not return smaller. She returns with more self than she had before. There are two truths that exist at the same time, and motherhood often asks us to hold both. Truth number one, there are seasons of motherhood that require near total caretaking. Early motherhood, sick kids, a struggling teenager, special needs children, an absent partner, a lot of kids. The list goes on forever, right? And resisting that reality can deepen suffering. Some phases are just going to ask everything. Truth number two, longing to find yourself again doesn't mean that you want to abandon your children. It means yourself is asking not to disappear forever, to hold on to her, but in the right ways. The conflict dissolves when we stop framing this as a values clash or a false dichotomy. It's one or the other. It's them or me, and start framing it as developmental timing. It's not an either or question. It's reframing it as phases. Should I accept disappearing or reclaim myself? Let's not ask that. Instead, the question can be, what does selfhood look like in this phase? Acceptance does not mean permanence. Dissent does not mean surrendering the future. There are seasons when a plant looks like it's gone. Above ground, nothing has happened. This is like exactly what all my ranunculus and dahlias look like right now in my garden. But below ground, the roots are deepening so that the next phase can exist. I love that metaphor for motherhood and for anything worth committing to, any of these long harvest projects. Accepting the descent is not agreeing to never grow again. It's agreeing to where the growth is happening right now. and being present with that. Motherhood often moves identity underground. That is not disappearance. That is preparation, you guys. My earliest days of motherhood after that first baby, they were pretty much 100% caretaking as I developed these new skills, having not spent a lot of time with babies or small children in my life up to this point. Whenever I resisted these early days in motherhood, this skill, developing this underground time, I often found it exhausting, boring, monotonous. But when I chose it wholeheartedly and met it with trust and non-resistance, it was still hard. But a curious thing happened. I met a new side of myself that was so much bigger and more creative and interesting and more Elle than pre-mothering Elle, if that makes sense. Being willing to let go of maiden Elle and to go underground for a while, like a caterpillar in a cocoon, gave me the time to grow and develop and reemerge a butterfly with the integration of the needed parts of former Elle, but also new sides of me that I'd never known. I know that everyone listening to this has experienced this on some level. Interesting side note. I think it's fascinating how Esther Perel, the couples therapist, says that mystery in marriage is like the most important element to keep alive. I believe that is true. And I believe that like when we're really committed to our growth through discomfort, we are continually changing and thus like creating new mysteries in ourselves for our partners to discover. Does that make sense? I really believe that because my husband and I are pretty committed to that process, that it has kept a real aliveness in our marriage. Anyway, just a side note there. But if I hadn't surrendered to that first descent in early motherhood, I never would have become the person with the creativity or confidence or the vision to start Solly Baby. I needed that descent. I was the Solly Baby, if you're a new listener, that was the company I started when I was pregnant with my second baby and grew over the next decade, which included having two more babies during that time. We sold it, the majority shares a few years ago. That may sound like, oh, perfect. You had one descent and then you reappeared and it was easy from there to hold both the caretaking, nurture identity, and to explore selfhood. You didn't lose anything, really. It was just like a really short little loss. But it was just a new fall down the well after that. That is what life is. I was even more pressed for time after that and bandwidth, and there was no clear path for how to take care of these babies and give Solly Baby all that it needed. Like it was an impossible equation, and it forced me again down the well in a totally different way. Again, it was trusting that when life required me to go underground, even when it seemed like I was very visible in the world, I still felt very much underground. But I trusted that it would not diminish me, that it would expand me, and that reclaimed identity would be something sweeter and more meaningful than the one that I'd left behind. That was the story that I began to write. And I could tell you story after story of experiencing this, and the pattern has repeated itself. It has been the most incredible adventure of my life, better than any I could have ever planned for. And with each new reclaimed identity, as I reemerge from down the well and listen to the fairy godmothers and spiritual guides and friends along the way, I find a bigger, more expanded version of myself that is ready for a new adventure. Finding yourself does not mean leaving or reclaiming freedom or returning to the old life. It means bringing selfhood back into care. It's integration. It's saying, I'm not trying to escape my life. I'm trying to inhabit it more fully. It's saying, right now, my energy belongs largely to care, but even now, I won't treat myself as expendable, and I can trust the return. This is not the final version of me. It's saying, accepting this season doesn't mean I stop longing. It means I stop fighting reality while still honoring the part of me that knows this isn't the end of my story. I'm not trying to find myself instead of my children. I'm trying to find myself within the life I'm giving to them. It's saying this season may require most of me, but not the erasing of me. These are the kinds of stories to hold on to as your story unfolds, as your identity expands when you are down the well, when your baby is sick and you need to cancel everything, when money's tight and you have to work more than you'd like, when breastfeeding is hard, when you follow that inkling to sacrifice financially and be home more with your teenagers at a time you didn't think you would need to do that, when you are so exhausted and depleted, when you have forgotten what you'd like to eat for dinner. In a world that says, don't give too much, don't sacrifice for anything that doesn't give immediate rewards, everything's unfair. This shouldn't be so hard. Don't get taken advantage of. Don't lose your youth or beauty. Don't lose your career or status. Cinderella says, let everything superficial go. Burn it down. Anything that no longer serves me, turn it to ashes. Strip me down to only what matters most. I will trust this process and approach it with open-heartedness, humility, curiosity, and courage. Let those babies change you. Love with reckless abandon. Be in it, as disorienting and dark as it is sometimes. Listen to the wise women or matriarchs around you, or help in whatever form it comes in. And remember that this phase will not be forever. But that fall down the well, the descent, that loss of self, and the time where you are completely consumed by caretaking is a part of most mothers' heroes' journeys. You're not on the wrong track. You will reemerge with an expanded identity and life in every way that you never could have even imagined. The wholehearted wish of most mothers, I think, is this: I want to find myself again without abandoning my children. I want you to know that that question is so good and worthy, and it doesn't need to come with guilt or shame. It's your intuition telling you that it's possible. You don't have to choose. See what's possible right now. Be patient with it, but also be courageous. Choose what life is asking of you right now, and don't miss the adventure of it. That crying baby you are holding in the night, young moms, will most assuredly grow into a teenager whose door you will be knocking on faster than you realize. Instead of asking, how do I get myself back? Try asking something like, what part of me went quiet so love could continue? And what would it mean to invite her back now? Reclaiming identity re-emergence for you right now might look like scheduling one self-care ritual or act that is truly nourishing and rejuvenating. Remember that self-care episode from season 1? Revisit that one for some really good ideas. Write a list of, I used to do this. I had a coach do this with me, and I've done it with other clients. Write a list of 100 things that you want to do one day. It's actually very hard to write 100, but it will get your wheels turning, and it will definitely surprise you by finding some that work in your current life right now. And maybe stop making so many 1-year plans, maybe more like 5 or 10-year plans. I heard a great quote once that we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5. So like expanding our vision a little bit there can be very helpful. Or don't do any of that. Just trust that you are becoming someone larger than you were before right now, at the bottom of the well. And it may seem monotonous and boring and like you're disappearing, but you are not. This is where the magic happens. This is where you become. And also hold on to your desires without judgment. The doors will open. As you do this, this new story will write itself and become the script that you will live out, and you will have your own Cinderella ending that is right for you and your life and all the people that you love. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I hope that you can think of somebody who could use it. Maybe a few other ladies. I appreciate it so much. All of the sharing, liking, subscribing, commenting, reviewing, all of those things really help get the podcast out in the world. So thank you, and until next time.